The screaming had stopped. Lorelei pressed her back against the cold stone wall of the alley, her unseeing eyes wide as she strained to understand what was happening in Shadowmere Market. The sudden silence was worse than the chaos that had preceded it. Dozens of voices shouting, feet stampeding, the crash of overturning stalls. Now there was only labored breathing and the metallic scent of blood so thick she could taste it. "Stay hidden, little moth," Zephra had whispered urgently before shoving Lorelei into this narrow space between buildings. There had been something strange in her voice. Not just fear, but recognition. "Whatever happens, don't make a sound." That had been 20 minutes ago, or perhaps an hour. Time moved strangely when terror flooded every nerve. Lorelei's fingers found the rough hemp of her guide rope, still tied to her wrist, though the other end, which should have been in Zephra's steady hand, now led nowhere. Her friend, her protector since childhood, had vanished into whatever nightmare had descended upon the market. A footstep, heavy, deliberate. Then another. Someone was moving through the square with the measured pace of absolute authority. No rushing, no fear. Whoever this was owned this space completely. "Bring the survivors forward." The voice that spoke made Lorelei's Omega instincts scream in recognition. Alpha. But not just any alpha. This voice carried a weight of command that pressed against her consciousness like a physical thing. Even from her hiding spot, she felt the compulsion to bare her throat in submission. "Your Majesty," another voice responded, trembling. "We've secured the assassins. 3 dead, 2 captured." "Your Majesty." Lorelei's heart stuttered. The Alpha King himself was here, in this common market square. Calix Valdris, the untouchable king, whose reputation was built on 2 absolutes: his ruthless justice and his complete aversion to physical contact with anyone. And the Omega traitor? Calix's voice had gone deadly quiet. "Mordecai escaped through the eastern gates, sire. He left his inventory behind." Inventory? The word made bile rise in Lorelei's throat. She knew what that meant. Omegas, probably drugged and caged, waiting to be sold to the highest bidder. The illegal Omega trade that everyone knew existed, but no one could seem to stop. "Free them all," Calix commanded. "Get them to the palace healers." "But sire, some of them are damaged, blind, mute, scarred. They won't fetch any price now." The sound that followed made Lorelei flinch. A wet, choking gasp, then a body hitting stone. "Anyone else want to discuss the market value of brutalized Omegas?" Calix asked conversationally. Silence. "Free them all," he repeated, "and find Mordecai. I want his head." More footsteps, rapid ones, as soldiers scattered to follow orders. Lorelei should have stayed still, should have waited until the square cleared completely. But her guide rope chose that moment to catch on something, yanking her wrist forward. She stumbled, her shoulder hitting a market stall. The wooden structure, already damaged from the earlier chaos, collapsed with a tremendous crash. Everything went still. "Who's there?" Calix's voice cut through the air like a blade. Lorelei tried to shrink back, but her foot caught on debris. She fell hard, crying out as her palms scraped against broken pottery. The sound seemed to echo in the unnatural quiet. Footsteps approached. Those same measured, authoritative steps. Lorelei scrambled backward until she hit something solid. Not a wall. Legs. She'd backed directly into him. An Omega. His voice came from directly above her, and this close she could smell him. Pine smoke and winter steel, an alpha scent so potent it made her Omega instincts sing and cower simultaneously. "You're not one of Mordecai's." It wasn't a question. Lorelei shook her head anyway, trying to find her voice. Stand up. She tried, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. The alpha pheromones, the fear, the disorientation of losing her usual landmarks. Everything conspired to keep her trembling on the ground. I said stand. I can't. The words came out as barely a whisper. I can't see where. I don't know which way. A sharp intake of breath above her. You're blind. Before Lyra could respond, hands gripped her arms. Large, warm hands that sent electricity shooting through her nervous system. But more shocking than the sensation was the fact itself. The untouchable king was touching her. He lifted her to her feet as if she weighed nothing, and for a moment, they stood frozen. His hands remained on her arms, and she could feel the tremor running through them. Impossible, he breathed, and she wasn't sure if he was talking to her or himself. Your Majesty! Thessarian's voice cracked like a whip across the square. You're touching... Calix's hands tightened reflexively on Lyralai's arms before he seemed to realize what he was doing, but he didn't let go. How? His voice had gone rough, almost feral. How are you doing this? Doing what? Lyralai's voice shook. I'm not doing anything. Please. I just want to find my friend. Lying Omega! Thessarian snarled closer now. What magic is this? What poison have you coated yourself with? I don't understand. For 15 years, Calix interrupted, his voice barely controlled. I haven't been able to touch another living being without experiencing agony. Every attempt at contact has felt like burning from the inside out. Healers, witches, scholars, none could explain or cure it. Yet here you are, a blind Omega who stumbles into my arms, and I feel nothing. No pain at all. His thumb moved against her arm just slightly, as if testing. Actually, that's not accurate. I feel something, but it's not pain. Sire, Thessarian warned, this could be a trap. Mordecai might have. Mordecai is many things, but he's not capable of this. Calix's voice had taken on a strange quality, almost wondering. Do you know what you are, little Omega? Lyralai, she said quietly. My name is Lyralai, and I'm no one. Just a healer's apprentice. I shouldn't even be here. Zephra just needed help carrying supplies. A healer's apprentice? Something in his tone shifted. How convenient. And this Zephra, your alpha? My friend. My guardian since childhood. She was protecting me when the fighting started. We found no other survivors in the square, Thessarian said coldly. Ice flooded Lyralai's veins. No, she has to be here. She pushed me into the alley and said she'd come back. Her legs gave out again, but Calix caught her, pulling her against his chest in a movement that seemed to surprise him as much as her. She could hear his heartbeat, rapid and strong. Thessarian, search again, he commanded. Check every body. Sire, now. Footsteps retreated. Lyralai realized she was still pressed against the Alpha King's chest, his arms around her, and neither of them had moved to change that. You're trembling, he observed. You're holding me. The words slipped out before she could stop them. The untouchable king is holding me, and I don't understand why, and my friend might be dead, and I can't breathe. Look at me. His voice had gentled, but it was still unmistakably a command. I can't see you. Then feel. He took her hand, and she heard several gasps from unseen watchers and pressed it to his chest. Breathe with me. In. Out. She found herself matching his rhythm, her panic slowly ebbing. Your Majesty, Thessarian had returned, his voice carefully neutral. We found a woman matching the description. Alive, but badly injured. The healers have taken her. Lyrelei sagged in relief, and Calix's arms tightened around her. Take us to the palace, he commanded. Us, sire? The Omega comes with me. But she's the first person I've been able to touch in 15 years, the Sarian. She doesn't leave my sight until I understand why. He shifted, and suddenly Lyrelei found herself lifted into his arms, held against his chest like something precious. I can walk? She protested weakly. Through this debris field? While blind? I think not. His voice rumbled through his chest where she was pressed against him. Besides, I find myself reluctant to stop. As he carried her from the square, Lyrelei heard the whispers starting, shocked voices discussing the impossible sight of their untouchable king holding a common blind Omega. But beneath the scandal, she heard something else in the murmurs. Fear. Because if Calix Valdris had finally found someone he could touch, what would he do to keep her? And in his arms, feeling the possessive way his hands gripped her, Lyrelei wondered the same thing. The last thing she heard before exhaustion claimed her was his voice, quiet and fierce. Mine. Lyrelei woke to silk beneath her fingers and the absence of pain. For a moment she lay still, cataloging the strangeness. The bed was too soft, the air too warm and perfumed with something expensive, jasmine and moon orchids. Even the quality of sound was different here, wherever here was. No street noise, no merchants hawking wares. Just a deep quiet broken only by distant footfalls on marble. Then she remembered. The market, the attack, the Alpha King who could somehow bear her touch. She sat up quickly, too quickly, and immediately regretted it as vertigo struck. Careful. His voice came from somewhere to her left, making her freeze. The healers said you'd be disoriented. Shock, they diagnosed. That and malnutrition. Calix. He was here, in whatever room this was, watching her. How long have I been unconscious? Her voice came out hoarse. 14 hours? A pause. I've been here for 12 of them. You've been watching me sleep? Someone had to ensure you didn't disappear. His tone was carefully neutral, but she caught something underneath it, an edge of possessiveness that made her Omega instincts purr even as her rational mind recoiled. Where's Zephra? Recovering. The healers say she'll survive, though she took a blade meant for you, apparently. Chair legs scraped against stone as he stood. Mordecai's assassins were quite specific in their targeting. Lyrelei's blood chilled. They were after me? The question is why. His footsteps circled her bed slowly, predatorily. A blind Omega healer's apprentice should be beneath the notice of slave traders, unless, of course, you're not what you seem. I don't know what you mean. Don't you? He was closer now. She could feel the heat of him. 19 assassins infiltrated that market. They killed 7 royal guards, elite warriors. Yet somehow, a blind Omega survived unscathed. More than that, you're the only person in 15 years whose touch doesn't cause me agony. Quite the coincidence. I didn't ask for any of this. Her words cut off as fingers touched her chin, tilting her face up. The contact sent sparks through her nervous system, and she heard his sharp intake of breath. There, he murmured. That. Do you feel it too? She did. Like electricity and honey, like coming home and being set on fire simultaneously. Her Omega nature wanted to bare her throat, to submit completely to this Alpha's touch. She fought the instinct. Please, she whispered. I need to understand what's happening. His thumb brushed along her jaw, and they both shuddered. As do I. His voice had gone rough. The court physicians have examined you. You bear no magic they can detect, no blessing or curse. You're simply you. And yet, and yet, and yet, when you stumbled into me yesterday, it was the first time in 15 years I remembered what it felt like to be human. His hand dropped away, leaving cold absence. Do you understand what that means? For 15 years, I've ruled from a distance. No handshakes with allies. No comfort for grieving subjects. No. He stopped abruptly. No, mate. Lyrelai finished softly. Silence stretched between them, heavy with implication. A knock shattered the moment. Enter, Calix commanded, his voice instantly shifting to cold authority. Your Majesty. The voice belonged to someone new, crisp and clinical. I am Physician Nyx. You asked to be informed when we had results. Speak. The Omega bears the Genesis mark. Lyrelai felt Calix go completely still beside her. That's impossible, he said flatly. The Genesis bloodline died out 3 centuries ago. The mark doesn't lie, sire. It's faint, likely diluted through generations, but unmistakable. She carries the original blessing. What are you talking about? Lyrelai demanded. What mark? What blessing? Show her, Calix ordered. Someone, Nyx presumably, took Lyrelai's hand and guided it to the back of her own neck, just below her hairline. There, barely raised, she felt a pattern in her skin she'd never noticed before. It felt like a crescent moon cradling a star. The Genesis wolves were the first of our kind, Nyx explained clinically. They could heal any wound, break any curse, restore what was broken. They were also the only wolves whose touch could calm a feral alpha's rage or cure conditions that separated alphas from their ability to bond. You're saying I'm some kind of magical cure? Lyrelai yanked her hand away. That's insane. Is it? Calix's voice had taken on a dangerous quality. Yesterday, you stumbled into the one alpha in the kingdom who desperately needed what only your bloodline can provide. Today, we discover you bear a mark that hasn't been seen in living memory. Quite the fortune. You think I planned this? Incredulity colored her voice. I'm blind. I can barely navigate my own cottage, let alone orchestrate some elaborate deception. Unless the blindness itself is the deception. Before she could protest, his fingers were at her temples, then moving across her closed eyelids with shocking gentleness. No, he said after a moment, and she heard genuine surprise in his voice. The scar tissue is real. Old. This happened when you were a child. A fever, she said quietly. When I was 3. It took my sight, and nearly my life. His hands didn't move from her face. And your parents? Dead. The same fever. Yet you survived. A Genesis descendant who survived what should have killed you. His thumbs stroked along her cheekbones, and she could hear the wonder creeping into his voice. Do you know what this means? Your Majesty, Nyx interrupted urgently. There's more. The blood tests show. What? Calix's voice sharpened. She's untouched, sire, completely pure. No alpha has ever claimed her, marked her, or even attempted a partial bond. In our society, for an Omega of her age, that's unheard of, Calix finished. Omegas are usually claimed by 16, 18 at the latest. I couldn't risk it, Lyrelai admitted quietly. Zephra helped hide what I was. She always seemed to know exactly when an alpha was getting too close, when to move us to a new place. We knew if an alpha claimed me and discovered I was blind, I'd be cast aside, or worse. The law doesn't protect damaged Omegas, Damaged. Calix's voice went lethally quiet. Is that what you think you are? It's what I know I am. Suddenly, she was pulled forward, crushed against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat racing, feel the tremor in his arms. Listen very carefully, he growled against her ear. You are not damaged. You are the answer to a prayer I stopped believing in years ago. You are the miracle that walked into my arms when I'd resigned myself to a lifetime of isolation. You don't even know me. I know enough. His arms tightened. I know you could have stayed hidden in that alley, but you tried to help when you heard others suffering. I know your first concern was for your friend, not yourself. I know you feel this connection between us as strongly as I do. Your Majesty, Nyx tried to interrupt. Leave us. But sire, the council is demanding, out! The door slammed behind the physician's rapid retreat. Calix's breathing was harsh against her hair. There's something else. Something they haven't told you yet. What? Mordecai. He's my cousin, and he didn't try to kill you because you're a random Omega. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. He tried to kill you because somehow he knew what you were, what you could mean to me. How could he possibly know? Because 3 weeks ago, our oracle spoke a prophecy. When the blind see truth and the untouchable touches grace, the Genesis rises from forgotten bloodlines to remake the throne. Lyra Lee's blood turned to ice. You think I think you're in terrible danger. And I think I'm about to do something unforgivable. Before she could ask what he meant, his mouth was on her throat, teeth grazing the spot where an alpha would claim an omega. She gasped, her entire body lighting up with need. Don't, she whispered, but her head tilted back, offering better access. I should let you go, he said against her skin. You deserve better than being claimed by a cursed king, but I can't. Not when you're the only light in 15 years of darkness. A crash echoed from somewhere in the palace, followed by screaming. Calix's head snapped up. No, not now. What is it? More screaming, closer now, and a sound that made her Omega instinct scream in terror, a howl that promised death. Mordecai, Calix snarled. He's here. The howl came again, closer now, followed by the sound of shattering glass. Calix moved with inhuman speed, shoving Lyrelai behind him as the bedroom door exploded inward. Through the chaos of splintering wood and screaming, she heard the distinctive sound of bones breaking and reforming, the sound of wolves shifting. Stay behind me, Calix commanded, his voice already deepening into something not quite human. Well, cousin, a new voice drawled from the doorway. Mordecai, Lyralee assumed, though his voice carried a sickeningly sweet quality that made her skin crawl. I see you found my escaped prize. She's under royal protection, Calix snarled. Is she? How fascinating. The untouchable king suddenly develops an interest in a blind Omega. Footsteps circled them, multiple sets. Mordecai hadn't come alone. Tell me, does she know what you really are? What that curse of yours actually means? Enough, Mordecai. Oh, but I think she deserves the truth. His voice came from a different position now. He was moving, stalking them like prey. You see, little Omega, our beloved king isn't just unable to touch, he's unable to shift. 15 years since his wolf emerged. Do you know what happens to an alpha who can't access his wolf? Silence stretched taut. They go feral, Mordecai continued with evident delight. Slowly, inevitably, the beast inside tears the human apart. Our king has perhaps a month before he loses his mind entirely. Unless what? Lyrelai heard herself ask. Unless he finds his true mate. the one person whose touch can restore what was broken. A laugh like breaking glass. And here you are, a Genesis descendant who conveniently stumbled into his arms. How poetic, how perfectly orchestrated. You're the one who orchestrated this, Calyx growled. You knew what she was. You tried to kill her before I could find her. Actually, I tried to acquire her. The assassination attempt was just to flush her out. And it worked beautifully. More footsteps. They were being surrounded. You see, Mordecai continued conversationally, I've been searching for Genesis descendants for years, studying their bloodlines, their histories, their powers. They're the key to everything. Healing, power, control. Imagine my delight when my scouts reported a blind Omega bearing the mark. Even better when I realized what she could mean for you. You wanted me to find her, Calyx said slowly, realization dawning in his voice. Of course. Let you bond with her, claim her, restore your wolf, and then take her away. Do you know what happens to an alpha who loses his true mate after bonding? It's worse than the curse. You'd be dead within days, leaving the throne conveniently empty. Lyrelai felt Calyx's body trembling with rage beside her. But imagine my surprise, Mordecai continued, when you didn't immediately claim her. Such restraint, such nobility. It's nauseating, really. If you think I'll let you take her? Oh, you'll do more than let me. You'll hand her over willingly. Never. No? Thessarian. Bring her in. New footsteps, struggling ones, then a voice that made Lyrelai's heart stop. Let go of me, you bastard. Zephra's voice, weak but defiant. You're Omega's protector, Mordecai said pleasantly. Amazing how quickly wolfsbane works when introduced directly into the bloodstream. She has perhaps an hour before her organs fail. Unless, of course, a Genesis healer intervenes. Lyra, don't! Zephra's words cut off in a choke. Here's my offer, Mordecai said. The Omega comes with me willingly, heals my people, serves my purposes. In exchange, I cure her friend and leave you to your slow descent into madness. Refuse, and I kill the friend now and take the Omega anyway. You're surrounded by royal guards, Calyx said. Am I? Guards, report. Silence. Your guards are a bit indisposed. Funny thing about loyalty, it's surprisingly cheap when the kingdom is facing a mad king. Lyrelai stepped out from behind Calyx before he could stop her. If I go with you, you'll truly save Zephra. Lyrelai, no. Calyx grabbed her arm. The moment he touched her, something extraordinary happened. Light exploded from the point of contact, not visible light. She couldn't see it, but she could feel it. Warm and golden and pure. Calyx gasped, his grip tightening. Impossible, Mordecai breathed. The light spread, racing up Calyx's arm and across his body. She felt more than heard the sound that erupted from his throat. Part howl, part roar. Entirely inhuman. His body convulsed against hers, and she could feel his bones shifting, breaking, reforming. His wolf. Someone whispered in awe. The king's wolf is returning. But something was wrong. Calyx's grip on her arm had become painful, his nails lengthening into claws that drew blood. The sound coming from him shifted from triumph to agony. Too fast! Nyx's voice came from somewhere behind them. The transformation is happening too quickly. 15 years of suppression releasing at once. It'll kill him. Lyrelai didn't think. She turned in Calyx's convulsing grip, placed both hands on his chest, and reached for something she didn't fully understand. The Genesis power Nyx had spoken of. She could feel it now. Dormant but present. Like a sleeping giant in her blood. Please, she whispered. Please, help him. Warmth flooded through her, different from before. This wasn't the electric attraction of Omega to Alpha. This was older, deeper, a power that predated their modern understanding of wolves. It flowed from her hands into Calyx's writhing form, not stopping the transformation but controlling it, slowing it, gentling it. Beautiful, Mordecai murmured. Absolutely beautiful. Do you understand what you're witnessing? She's not just Genesis touched. She's a pure conduit, the first in 300 years. Calyx's transformation completed with a final shudder. When Lyrali pulled her hands away, she could hear the different quality of his breathing. Deeper, more grounded, whole. You saved me, he said, his voice rough with wonder. Then, louder, with an edge of command that made everyone in the room step back. You gave me back my wolf. Touching, Mordecai said. Truly. But it changes nothing. My offer stands. I'll go, Lyrali said quietly. No. Calyx's refusal was immediate and absolute. He has Zephra, and I have something better. The smile in Calyx's voice was audible and terrifying. I have my wolf back. Do you know what that means, cousin? The room erupted into chaos. The sound of shifting filled the air. Bones breaking, reforming, snarls replacing human voices. Lyrali was pulled against something solid and warm. Calyx, still in human form, shielding her with his body while violence exploded around them. Don't let go of me, he commanded against her ear. Whatever happens, hold on. She gripped his shirt as the sounds of battle intensified. Growls, screams, the wet sound of tearing flesh. The metallic scent of blood grew so thick she could barely breathe. Then, suddenly, silence. It's over. Thessarian's voice came from somewhere to their left. Mordecai's wolves are dead. But? Calyx prompted. He escaped. And he took the woman, Zephra. No. Lyrali tried to pull away, but Calyx held her firm. We'll find her, he promised. But first, we need to discuss what just happened. What you did. I don't know what I did. You awakened something that's been dormant for centuries, Nyx interrupted, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and fear. The Genesis power isn't just healing. It's transformation, evolution. You didn't just restore his wolf. You made it stronger. Show me, Lyrali said suddenly. What? Your wolf. Show me. Let me touch. Let me understand what I did. A pause. Then the sound of shifting, but slower, more controlled. Fur brushed against her outstretched hand. Soft, warm, alive. The wolf was massive. Even sitting, its head reached her chest. She ran her fingers through its fur, feeling the powerful muscles beneath, the steady heartbeat. But more than that, she felt the connection between them solidify. Not just attraction or chemistry. Something fundamental had clicked into place when she'd healed him. The wolf shifted back, and suddenly Calyx was there. Naked, she realized with a blush, pulling her against him. Mine, he growled, and it wasn't a question. Before she could respond, his mouth was on her throat again, but this time he didn't hesitate. His teeth sank into the junction between neck and shoulder, the claiming bite that would bind them forever. Pain and pleasure exploded through her simultaneously. But underneath both, she felt something else stirring. The Genesis power, responding to the claiming, awakening fully for the first time in her life. When he pulled back, she could feel the bond between them humming like a live wire. What have you done? She whispered. What I should have done the moment you fell into my arms, he replied. Made sure no one, not Mordecai, not the council, not death itself, could take you from me. Your Majesty, Thessarian's voice was urgent. We have a problem. The bite. Look at her eyes. What about them? Lyra asked, confusion cutting through the haze of the claiming. They're glowing, Nick said in wonder. Gold? Like a wolf's? But she's still human. This shouldn't be possible. The Genesis blessing, someone else whispered. It's not just awakening. It's evolving. The glowing lasted only moments, but the aftermath stretched for hours. Lyra sat in the palace's medical wing, surrounded by healers who spoke in hushed, urgent tones about impossibilities. The claiming bite on her neck throbbed with each heartbeat, sending waves of sensation through her body. Not pain exactly, but something far more complex. Change. The cellular structure is shifting, Nyx muttered, reading from various instruments she could hear clicking and humming around her. But not into wolf form. Into something else entirely. Something else? Calix's voice came from directly beside her. He hadn't left her side since the claiming, his hand maintaining constant contact with hers. She could feel his concern through their new bond, a sensation she was still adjusting to. The Genesis blessing is adapting to the claiming bite, Nyx explained. According to the old texts, Genesis wolves could take multiple forms: wolf, human, and something in between. A hybrid form that maintained human consciousness while accessing wolf abilities. That's a myth, Thessarian said from across the room. So is her ability to restore your king's wolf, Nyx countered. Yet here we are. Lyra squeezed Calix's hand. I feel strange, like something's trying to surface but can't quite break through. Describe it, Nyx urged. Pressure behind my eyes, heat in my spine, and... She paused, unsure how to explain. I can sense things. Not see them, but perceive them differently. I know there are 7 people in this room. I know Thessarian is pacing by the window. I know there is something wrong with the third healer to my left. His heartbeat is irregular. He should have that examined. Stunned silence. How? The healer in question gasped. I don't know. I just... know. Echolocation, Nyx said suddenly. Or something similar. The Genesis blessing is compensating for your blindness by developing alternative sensory abilities. Can you make it stop? Lyra asked, overwhelmed by the constant influx of information. Why would we want to stop it? Thessarian asked. If she's developing enhanced abilities? Because it's killing her, Calix interrupted, his voice tight with controlled fear. I can feel it through the bond. Her body is burning through energy at an unsustainable rate. He was right. Lyra could feel it too, a deep exhaustion creeping through her bones, despite the supernatural awareness flooding her senses. We need to find Mordecai, she said suddenly, not just for Zephra. He studied the Genesis lines for years. He might know how to stabilize this. He's vanished, Thessarian reported. No trace of him or your friend. Then we make him come to us, Calix said. Announce a royal summit. Every pack leader in the kingdom must attend to witness the claiming ceremony and swear fealty to their new queen. Queen? Lyrelai's voice cracked. I'm not... You're my claimed mate. That makes you queen. His thumb stroked over her knuckles. Mordecai won't be able to resist. Not when you'll be displayed before every alpha in the realm. Bait, she said flatly. Protected bait. Every loyal wolf in the kingdom will be there, and every disloyal one. She could hear the smile in his voice. Yes. A knock interrupted them. Your Majesty, a guard's voice called. The Oracle demands an audience. She says it's about the Omega. The Oracle? Lyrelai felt Calyx tense beside her. The Oracle had been strangely absent since her prophecy weeks ago. "Bring her," he commanded. The atmosphere changed the moment the Oracle entered. The temperature seemed to drop, and Lyrelai's new senses screamed danger. This woman, if she was a woman, radiated power that felt ancient and hungry. "So," a voice like wind through dead leaves said, "the Genesis rises at last." "Oracle," Calyx's tone was carefully neutral. "What brings you here?" "The same thing that brought her to you. Destiny, though not the one you think." The Oracle moved closer, and Lyrelai's supernatural perception struggled to define her. One moment she seemed solid, the next dispersed like smoke. "May I?" the Oracle asked, though she was already reaching for Lyrelai's face. The touch, when it came, was ice-cold and burning hot simultaneously. Images flooded Lyrelai's mind, not sight exactly, but something deeper. A wolf the size of a mountain, cities burning, power that could reshape the world or destroy it. "Interesting," the Oracle murmured. "You're not the first Genesis descendant I've found, you know. But you're the first to survive the awakening this long." "There were others?" Calyx demanded. 3 in the last century. All died within days of their power manifesting. Too much power for a mortal frame to contain. She released Lyrelai's face. "This one is different. Stronger. But strength alone won't be enough." "Enough for what?" Lyrelai asked. "For what's coming." "Mordecai isn't working alone. There's something older, hungrier, that wants the Genesis power. Something that's been waiting 300 years for a pure conduit to emerge." "Speak plainly," Calyx commanded. "The Void King," the Oracle said simply, and everyone in the room stepped back. "The first Feral Alpha, the one who destroyed the original Genesis line. He's not dead, merely imprisoned. And your mate's blood is the key to his freedom." "That's impossible," Thessarian protested. "The Void King is a legend." "So is she." The Oracle pointed at Lyrelai. "Mordecai serves the Void King. Every Genesis descendant he's found, he's delivered to the prison. Their blood weakens the seals, but it takes a pure conduit, a true Genesis heir, to break them completely." "Then we keep her here," Calyx said immediately, "behind every ward and wall." "And let her power consume her from within?" The Oracle laughed, the sound like breaking bells. "She has perhaps 3 days before the Genesis blessing burns through her mortal form. Unless—" "I'm getting very tired of that word," Lyrelai said. "Unless you complete the full transformation. Become what the Genesis line was always meant to be. Not human, not wolf, but something between and beyond." "How?" "There's a place. The Sanctum of First Souls, where the original Genesis wolves underwent their transformation. The power there might stabilize what's happening to you." "Where is it?" Calyx demanded. "In the Voidlands, the very place Mordecai will expect you to go." The Oracle moved toward the door. "You have 2 days to decide, save your mate or protect your kingdom. You can't do both." "Watch me," Calyx growled. The Oracle paused at the threshold. "One more thing. The Omega's friend, Zephra. She's not who you think she is. She's been hiding her true nature since the day she met Lyrelai. Guardian blood runs in her veins." "What do you mean?" Lyrelai asked, remembering all the times Zephra had known exactly when danger was near. But the Oracle was gone, leaving only the scent of ash and prophecy. "We're not going to the Voidlands," Thessarian said immediately. "It's obviously a trap." "Of course it's a trap," Calyx agreed. But we're still going. Your Majesty, I won't lose her. The bond between them pulsed with his determination. Not when I've just found her. Lyrelei stood, swaying slightly as her new senses recalibrated. There's another option. No, Calyx said before she could continue. You don't even know what I was going to say. You were going to suggest using yourself as bait at the summit while secretly planning to surrender to Mordecai to save everyone else. I can feel your intentions through the bond, remember? She flushed. If my blood is the key, then we make sure no one gets it. He pulled her against him. We'll find another way. Your Majesty. A new guard appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. A message just arrived. From Mordecai. Calyx took the parchment, and Lyrelei felt his rage spike through their bond as he read. What does it say? She asked. He has Zephra at the Void Lands. He'll trade her for you. We have one day. He crumpled the parchment. He's forcing our hand. Then we spring the trap, Lyrelei said quietly. But on our terms. She turned to Nyx. You said the Genesis power is burning through me. What if we accelerated it? Controlled the burn? That could kill you immediately. Or complete the transformation before we face whatever's waiting in the Void Lands. She squeezed Calyx's hand. I'm dying anyway. At least this way, I die fighting. Through their bond, she felt his anguish, his fury, his desperate need to protect her. But underneath it all, she felt something else. Pride. Together then, he said finally. Together, she agreed. Outside, storm clouds gathered, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, lonely, hungry, and patient. The Void King was waiting. The Void Lands stretched before them like a wound in the world. Where normal forests held life, these held absence. The trees stood leafless and black, their branches reaching toward a sky that seemed perpetually twilight despite it being midday. No birds sang, no insects buzzed. Even the wind seemed to avoid this place, leaving an oppressive stillness that made every sound they made feel like sacrilege. Lyrelei rode pressed against Calyx's chest, his arms around her as he guided their mount. Her new senses, which had been overwhelming in the palace, struggled here. The very air seemed to absorb sound and sensation, creating dead zones in her perception that left her feeling more blind than before. How much farther? Thessarian asked from somewhere to their left. He'd insisted on coming, along with 20 of Calyx's most trusted guards. The map says we should reach the sanctum by nightfall, Calyx replied, his voice tense. Through their bond, Lyrelei could feel his wolf's unease. This place was wrong on a fundamental level. Assuming the map is accurate, someone muttered. Assuming this isn't all an elaborate trap. It had been less than a day since Mordecai's ultimatum. They'd ridden through the night, stopping only to water the horses. With each passing hour, Lyrelei felt the Genesis power burning hotter in her veins, consuming her from within. Stop, she said suddenly. Calyx pulled their horse to an immediate halt. What is it? Something's wrong. More wrong than usual. She tilted her head, straining to understand what her failing senses were trying to tell her. The air pressure is different ahead. Like there's a massive space hidden by something. An illusion or ward. Spread out, Calyx commanded his guards. Carefully. They dismounted, and Calyx kept one arm around Lyrelei's waist as they moved forward. She felt him tense suddenly. By the old gods, Thessarian breathed. It's real. Describe it, Lyrelei said, frustrated by her inability to perceive whatever they were seeing. The sanctum, Calyx said, his voice filled with awe. It's carved into a mountain that shouldn't exist. The entrance it's massive, ancient. The stones are covered in markings I can't read. Genesis script, Nick said. He'd insisted on accompanying them, claiming medical necessity. It says, "Here the first became more than flesh, less than divine. Enter and be transformed or be consumed." Comforting, Lyrelay said dryly. They approached the entrance slowly. The moment Lyrelay crossed the threshold, her senses exploded back to life, but different. She could suddenly perceive everything, not just in the present, but in layers of time. She saw, felt, knew the sanctum as it was now, crumbling and ancient, but also as it had been, filled with Genesis wolves undergoing their transformations, screaming and triumphant in equal measure. Lyrelay? Calyx's concern pulsed through their bond. I'm all right. It's just intense. She pressed a hand to her temple. This place remembers. Everything that happened here, it's like it's still happening. Layer upon layer of history existing simultaneously. Can you navigate it? She nodded slowly. Follow me. It should have been impossible, a blind woman leading seeing people through an ancient ruin. But the sanctum seemed to recognize her, respond to her. Paths opened where there had been walls. Stairs appeared beneath her feet. The Genesis blood in her veins sang in recognition of this place. They descended deep into the mountain, the air growing thick with power that made everyone except Lyrali struggle to breathe. Finally, they emerged into a vast chamber. At its center was a pool of water that glowed with soft silver light. The transformation pool, Nyx whispered. Legend says the first Genesis wolves were born here. Humans who entered the water and emerged as something more. Or died trying, Thessarian added grimly. Hello, cousin. Everyone spun toward the voice. Mordecai stood on the far side of the pool and beside him. Zephra! Lyrelai started forward, but Calyx caught her. Wait. Something's wrong. He was right. Lyrelay's enhanced senses picked up something off about her friend's heartbeat. It was too slow, too regular, almost mechanical. What did you do to her? Lyrelay demanded. I gave her what she always wanted, Mordecai replied smoothly. Power, purpose, freedom from weakness. He stroked Zephra's cheek, and she didn't react at all. The Void King's gift is generous to those who serve willingly. She would never... Wouldn't she? Zephra spoke for the first time, her voice flat and emotionless. You have no idea what I've sacrificed to protect you, Lyrelay. Years of hiding your nature, fighting off alphas who caught your scent, living in poverty when I could have sold you a dozen times over. The words hit Lyrelay like physical blows. You're lying. Mordecai is making you say this. The Void King showed me the truth. Zephra continued in that same dead tone. I was wasting my life on an Omega who could never even see my devotion. But now I serve a higher purpose. Touching, isn't it? Mordecai smiled. The loyal friend revealed. But we're not here for reunions. You have something I need, little Genesis. Your blood specifically. Enough to crack the final seal on the Void King's prison. You'll have to kill me first, Calyx snarled, shifting partially, his hands becoming claws. Actually, Mordecai said thoughtfully, I was planning to kill you anyway. The Void King has no use for claimed Omegas. Their blood is tainted. But if you die, the bond breaks, and she becomes pure again. Horror flooded through Lyrelay as the implications hit her. That's why you let us claim each other. You wanted the bond in place so you could break it. Clever girl. Though I must admit, I didn't expect you to restore his wolf so completely. That was an unexpected bonus. It will make killing him so much more satisfying. You're forgetting something, Kalix said, his voice deadly calm. We didn't come alone. You mean your 20 guards? Oh, them. Mordecai made a dismissive gesture. Check your bonds, cousin. When was the last time you felt them? Ice flooded Lyrale's veins as she felt Kalix's shock through their connection. The pack bonds to his guards. They were gone. Severed. The Voidlands have a way of isolating wolves from their packs, Mordecai explained. Your guards are probably wandering lost by now. Or dead. The creatures here are quite hungry. Creatures? Thessarian demanded, moving closer to Kalix protectively. As if summoned by the word, shadows began pouring into the chamber. Not normal shadows. These had substance, form, hunger. They circled the pool like living darkness, their eyes glowing with violet fire. Void spawn. Nyx breathed in horror. They're not supposed to exist anymore. The Void King's influence grows, Mordecai said. Soon, creatures like these will overrun your precious kingdom. Unless, of course, someone stops him. His smile was sharp as broken glass. But to stop him, you'd need a Genesis wolf at full power. And the only way to achieve that is to enter the pool. Survive the transformation or die trying. It's a trap, Kalix said immediately. Of course it's a trap. But it's also the truth. Lyralai is dying. You can feel it through your bond. Her mortal body can't contain the Genesis power much longer. The pool is her only chance. Mordecai stepped back, gesturing magnanimously. By all means, try to save her. I'll wait. Lyralai could feel her body failing. The supernatural awareness was burning through her reserves at an alarming rate. She had perhaps hours before complete systemic failure. Do it, she said quietly. Lyralai, we don't have a choice. She turned toward where she could sense Kalix reaching for his face. If I die, at least I die trying to save everyone. If I survive. You'll be the most powerful being in centuries, Mordecai supplied helpfully. Powerful enough to challenge even the Void King. Though centuries of isolation drove the last Genesis wolf who achieved that power completely mad. The transformation pool doesn't just change the body, it remakes the mind. What do you mean? Kalix demanded. Every Genesis wolf who entered those waters came out different. Powerful, yes, but also alien. Removed from humanity. Some even turned feral immediately. He laughed. But please, don't let that stop you. Lyralai felt Kalix's anguish through their bond. Every instinct he had screamed against putting her in danger, but he could also feel what she felt, her body failing, shutting down system by system. Together, she said firmly. If I go in, you go in with me. That's not how it works, Mordecai started. I'm Genesis. I make my own rules. She turned back to Kalix. The bond connects us. If the pool tries to tear my mind apart, you anchor me. If it tries to kill me, you share the burden. That could kill us both, Nyx warned. Or save us both. Lyralai squared her shoulders. I won't go in without you. Through their bond, she felt Kalix's decision solidify. Together then? How romantic, Mordecai mocked. The king and queen, dying together in ancient waters. The poets will love it. They moved toward the pool's edge, hand in hand. The silver water didn't reflect anything. Instead, it seemed to look into them, judging, measuring, weighing their worth. Whatever happens, Kalix said softly, I love you. The words shocked through her. They'd known each other for mere days, been bonded for even less, but she felt the truth of it through their connection. Not just love, devotion, worship, a recognition that went soul deep. "I love you too," she whispered back, and meant it. They stepped into the pool together. The moment the water touched them, Lorali understood why Genesis wolves went mad. The pool was not water but memory and power distilled into liquid form. Every Genesis wolf who had ever entered, their hopes and fears and transformations all screaming at once. The water was not water. It was memory, power, and anguish distilled into liquid form. The moment Lyra lay submerged, she experienced every Genesis wolf who had ever entered the pool, their hopes, their fears, their transformations, their deaths. Hundreds of souls screaming in unison, trying to pull her apart and remake her in their image. But Calyx was there, his hand gripping hers with desperate strength, his mind a shield against the chaos through their bond. She felt his wolf, strong and certain, wrapping around her consciousness like armor. "Stay with me." His voice echoed in her mind, the first time they'd communicated directly through the bond. "Don't let go." The pool pulled them deeper, though it seemed to have no bottom. The silver light intensified until it was everything. No up, no down, just endless luminescence that burned and soothed in equal measure. Lyrelei felt her body beginning to change. Not the controlled burn she'd been experiencing for days, but violent, fundamental alteration. Her bones dissolved and reformed. Her blood turned to liquid fire. Her blind eyes burst with pain so intense she would have screamed if she had lungs to scream with. "I'm here." Calyx's presence in her mind was the only solid thing in a world of transformation. "I won't let you go." She felt his pain, too. The pool was changing him as well, though differently. Where her transformation was creation, his was refinement. The pool recognized him as wolf already and was purifying that nature, burning away the human limitations. Through the chaos, she heard Mordecai laughing from the pool's edge. "Yes, yes, the power you're releasing. It's cracking the seals. The Void King will be free." Rage flooded through Lyrelei. They were being used, their transformation weaponized for Mordecai's purposes. She tried to pull back, to stop the process, but it was too late. The pool had them. Then she felt something else. Deep in the water, beyond the screaming souls and transforming power, there was a presence. Ancient, patient, waiting. "Who's there?" she called out mentally. Finally, a voice like distant thunder replied. "A Genesis who can hear." Images flooded her mind. The truth about the Genesis line, about their purpose, about what they were meant to become. They weren't just wolves or healers. They were bridges between worlds, designed to maintain balance between the physical and the void. The Void King was one of us, the presence explained. The first Genesis, actually, but power corrupted him. He tried to merge the worlds completely, to rule both. We had to stop him, seal him away. But the seals were never meant to be permanent. "You wanted him to escape?" Lyrelei asked, horrified. "We wanted him to be redeemed. Every century, a Genesis is born with the power to either free him or destroy him permanently. You are this century's chosen. I don't want this power. Too late. You're already changing, but you're doing something we didn't expect. You're sharing the transformation. Your mate is becoming something new as well." Genesis touched. It's never been done before. She felt Calyx's mind brush against this ancient presence, felt his wolf nature recognize something fundamental about it. Together, the presence mused. Perhaps that's the answer. Not one Genesis alone, but Genesis paired with pure wolf. Balance. The pain suddenly intensified beyond anything Lyrelei had experienced. She felt her consciousness fragmenting, her human mind unable to contain the vast power flooding through her. She was becoming everything and nothing, everywhere and nowhere. Lyrelai! Calyx's mental voice was desperate. Stay with me. Focus on my voice. But she was dissolving, dispersing into pure energy. The Genesis power was too much, too vast for any single consciousness to contain. Then she felt it. Calyx taking the overflow, drawing the excess power into himself through their bond. He screamed in her mind as the Genesis energy met his wolf nature, creating something entirely new. Together, she managed to think. We survive together or not at all. She opened herself completely to the bond, letting Calyx's wolf ground her while she let her Genesis power flow into him. They became a circuit, power flowing between them in an endless loop, transforming both without destroying either. The pool began to boil around them, reacting to something unprecedented. Two souls undergoing the Genesis transformation simultaneously, bonded and balanced. Above them, Mordecai's laughter turned to screams of rage. "What are you doing? This isn't possible. The power should be destroying you." But it wasn't destroying them. It was remaking them into something the world had never seen. Lyrelai felt her eyes burst with final, excruciating heat, the damaged tissue that had kept her blind since childhood dissolving completely. New tissue formed, but different. Not quite human, not quite wolf, but something between. She didn't need to open them to know she could see. The world exploded into her consciousness in impossible detail, not just visible light, but heat, energy, the very fabric of reality. Beside her, Calyx was changing too. His wolf, already powerful, was becoming something more. She could feel it through their bond. He was gaining abilities no pure wolf should have: healing, foresight, the ability to sense and manipulate energy. Genesis wolves, the ancient presence whispered in awe. Both of you, different aspects of the same power. This changes everything. The pool suddenly expelled them, throwing them onto the stone floor of the chamber with violent force. Lyrelai gasped, her new lungs pulling in air that felt too thin, too simple after breathing liquid power. She opened her eyes. The world exploded into sight for the first time in 20 years. Not the sight she remembered from childhood. This was so much more. She could see the physical world, yes, but also the energy flowing through everything. The void creatures registered as tears in reality. Mordecai glowed with stolen power, and Calyx. Calyx was magnificent. His transformation had turned him into something between man and wolf, taller, broader, his features sharp and predatory, but still recognizably him. Silver markings covered his skin, Genesis script that matched the golden ones now decorating hers. His eyes, when they met hers, were no longer purely blue, but shot through with gold. "I can see," she whispered, reaching for his face. "I can see you." He caught her hand, and where their skin touched, light erupted. Not painful, but warm, powerful, right. "What did the pool do to us?" he asked, his voice deeper, resonating with harmonics that shouldn't exist. "It made us what we were meant to be," she replied, standing with fluid grace that felt natural despite being entirely new. Genesis paired, two halves of the same whole. "Impossible!" Mordecai snarled. He gestured to the void creatures. "Kill them! Kill them now!" The shadows surged forward, but Lyrelai raised her hand almost casually. Golden light erupted from her palm, not the gentle healing light from before, but something far more potent. The void creatures struck it and dissolved, screaming as they were unmade. You want to free the Void King? Lyrelai turned to Mordecai, and she could see the fear in his eyes. Truly see it, in spectrums no human should perceive. Then let me tell you what I learned in the pool. The Genesis line wasn't created to serve him or free him. We were created to be his judges. Lies. Truth. And as the first paired Genesis in 3 centuries, our judgment carries special weight. She stepped forward, Calyx moving with her in perfect synchronization. Call him. Open the seal, let's end this. Mordecai backed away. You're insane. If he's freed, then we'll face him. Judge him. Redeem him or destroy him. She smiled, and she could feel how predatory it looked. Unless you're afraid your master won't appreciate your failure? Zephra, who had been standing still through the entire transformation, suddenly moved. But not toward Lyrale, toward Mordecai. Her hand shot out, gripping his throat. You talk too much, she said, and her voice was her own again. Zephra? Lyrelai started forward, seeing her friend clearly for the first time, the determination in her eyes, the protective fury that had always been there. Her friend smiled sadly. I've been fighting his control this entire time, the Void King's power. It's strong, but not absolute. I let him think he had me so I could get close enough to do this. She pressed her other hand to Mordecai's chest, and Lyrelai saw energy flowing between them. Zephra was draining the stolen power Mordecai carried. No! Mordecai struggled, but Zephra's grip was iron. You want to know a secret? Zephra said conversationally as Mordecai weakened. I'm not just a random beta who befriended a blind Omega. I'm the last of the Guardian line, wolves bred specifically to protect Genesis descendants. I've been watching over Lyrelai since the day she was born, just as my mother watched over her mother, and her mother before that. Guardian? Lyrelai breathed, seeing the truth of it in the way energy moved through Zephra. Different from normal wolves, designed to complement Genesis' power. My family has protected yours for generations, waiting for a true Genesis to emerge. Every time you wondered how I knew when danger was near, how I always found us safe places, that was the guardian instinct. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you, but the secret was too important. Zephra's eyes met hers. But now you don't need protection. You've become what you were meant to be. Mordecai made a choking sound, then collapsed as Zephra released him. He wasn't dead. Lyrelai could see his life force still flickering, but he was empty of stolen power. The seals, he gasped from the floor. Your transformation, it still cracked them. The Void King, he's stirring. The mountain began to shake, and deep beneath them, something ancient and terrible was waking. The mountain shook with increasing violence, stones falling from the ceiling as something massive stirred in the depths below. Deep beneath the sanctum, something ancient and terrible was waking. Lyrali could feel it through her new senses, a presence so vast and dark it made the void creatures look like pale shadows. She could see it too, in ways that defied description. Layers of reality peeling back to reveal something that existed between worlds, neither fully here nor there. We need to leave, Thessarian said urgently. Now. No. Lyrelai's voice carried absolute certainty. We need to go deeper. To where the seals are. That's suicide, Nyx protested. That's our purpose. She looked at Calyx, seeing him truly for the first time with her new sight. The bond between them was visible now, a rope of gold and silver light that pulsed with shared power. The Genesis were created to judge. If we run now, the Void King escapes without that judgment, and the world suffers. Together? Calyx asked. Though she could feel through their bond, he already knew the answer. Always together. They descended deeper into the mountain, following passages that hadn't existed moments before. The sanctum was responding to their transformed nature, revealing its true structure. Zephra stayed close, supporting a semi-conscious Mordecai. They would need him alive for what was coming. The deeper they went, the more wrong everything became. Reality itself seemed to fray at the edges. Lyralay's new sight showed her tears in the fabric of existence, places where the void realm pressed against the physical world like an infection trying to spread. Finally, they reached a chamber that shouldn't exist. It was simultaneously vast and confined, empty and full, dark and blazing with impossible light. At its center was a cage made of pure energy, Genesis script forming bars of golden light. And inside? The Void King was not what Lyrelai expected. She'd imagined a monster, something twisted and evil. Instead, she saw what he had been, a Genesis wolf of incredible power, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. But centuries of imprisonment had changed him. His form flickered between wolf and human and something else entirely, as if he couldn't remember what he was supposed to be. When he sensed them, his eyes opened. They were voids. Not black, but actual absences of existence where his eyes should be. Genesis. His voice was the sound of civilizations falling. At last. Have you come to free me or finish what your ancestors started? We've come to judge, Lyralee said, stepping forward. As is our right and responsibility. The Void King laughed, and the mountain shook harder. Judge me? I am the first. I created the Genesis line. You exist because of me. And you fell because of us, Kalik said, moving to stand beside Lyralee. The Genesis you created turned against you. There must have been a reason. Reason? The Void King's form solidified slightly, becoming more human. He looked young, Lyralee realized with shock, barely older than they were. The reason was fear. I discovered the truth about our existence, about the barriers between worlds. They're not protection. They're a prison. All of reality, trapped in separate boxes, unable to achieve true unity. You tried to destroy the barriers, Lyralee said, understanding flooding through her enhanced perception. I tried to free us all. To create a world where void and reality, wolf and human, all existence could blend freely. But the other Genesis were too afraid of change. They imprisoned me and spread lies about my intentions. Through her new senses, Lyralee could see he wasn't entirely lying. There was truth in his words, genuine belief, but also madness. Centuries of imprisonment had twisted his noble goals into something else. Show me, she said suddenly. Lyralee, no, Kalik started. I need to see, to understand. How can we judge if we don't know the whole truth? She approached the cage, ignoring everyone's protests. When she touched the golden bars, images flooded her mind. Not just images, but experiences, memories, the weight of centuries, the world as it had been before the barriers solidified. Reality and void intermingled freely. Beings of pure thought walked alongside physical creatures. It was chaotic, but also beautiful, full of infinite possibility. Then the fear came. Some beings couldn't handle the chaos. They wanted definition, boundaries, limitations. Wars broke out between those who embraced chaos and those who craved order. The first Genesis, the being that would become the Void King, tried to find balance. He developed the ability to bridge worlds, to translate between chaos and order. But power corrupted him. Instead of bridging, he began forcing. Instead of translating, he began transforming. You see, the Void King said softly, I only wanted unity. Is that so wrong? The unity you wanted would have destroyed billions, Lyra Lee replied, pulling her hand back. Forcing beings to merge, to change, to become something they didn't choose, that's not unity, that's tyranny. And keeping them separated forever? That's not tyranny? It's choice, Kalix said firmly. The barriers don't prevent crossing, they just prevent forced crossing. Beings can still choose to transform, to bridge worlds. Like we did. The Void King's void eyes fixed on them, and Lyrelai felt him truly see them for the first time. You're both Genesis. But different. How? We chose each other, Lyrelai said simply. The pool didn't transform us separately. We transformed together, balancing each other. Order and chaos, Wolf and Genesis, bound by choice and love. Love. The Void King said the word like it was foreign. I had love once, before the centuries of solitude, before the madness. You still could, Lyrelai said, feeling a sudden surge of compassion. She could see past his current form to what he had been. Young, idealistic, trying to save everyone and destroying himself in the process. The judgment doesn't have to be death or continued imprisonment. There's a third option. Lyrelai, Zephra warned, be careful. But Lyrelai was already moving, approaching the cage again. Redemption, transformation, a second chance. Impossible, the Void King laughed bitterly. I'm too far gone. The Void has claimed too much of me. The Void claimed you because you were alone. No anchor, no bond, no balance. She looked back at Kalix, who nodded slowly, understanding her intent. But what if you weren't alone? What are you suggesting? Nyx asked, alarmed. The Guardian line, Lyrelai turned to Zephra. You said your family was bred to protect Genesis wolves, but protection can take many forms. Zephra's eyes widened. You want me to bond with him? He's insane. He's been imprisoned for centuries. He's broken, Lyrelai corrected, seeing the fractures in his essence with her new sight. But broken things can be healed if someone's willing to hold the pieces together while they mend. This is madness, Thessarian protested. This is Genesis' judgment, Lyrelai said firmly. Not death, not imprisonment, but transformation through connection. She looked at the Void King. Would you accept it? A guardian bond? Someone to anchor you while you remember how to be whole? The Void King's form flickered rapidly between shapes. You would trust me with one of your own? I would trust Zephra to do what she's always done, protect what matters. Lyrelai met her friend's eyes. But only if you choose it. This can't be forced. Zephra was quiet for a long moment, studying the imprisoned being with eyes that saw more than most. The guardian instincts that had protected Lyrali for years now evaluated a different kind of threat, a different kind of need. Then she dropped Mordecai unceremoniously and stepped forward. I've spent my whole life protecting, she said quietly. Maybe it's time I tried redeeming instead. She reached through the bars of the cage, her hand steady despite the tears. On her face. I offer you a choice, Void King. Take my hand and accept a guardian bond. Accept limits and balance and the long road to redemption, or stay in your cage forever. The Void King stared at her outstretched hand for an eternity. Then, slowly, his form solidified into something almost human. Young, scared, desperately lonely. My name, he whispered, was Astraeus. Before I became the Void King, I was called Astraeus. Hello, Astraeus, Zephra said gently. I'm Zephra. Let me help you remember who you were. Their hands touched. The explosion of power knocked everyone except Lyrali and Calyx to their knees. The cage shattered, but instead of the Void King escaping, something else happened. The void energy that had corrupted him for centuries began flowing into Zephra, but she didn't fight it. She accepted it, balanced it with her guardian nature, created something new. When the light faded, two figures stood where the cage had been. Zephra changed, her hair now streaked with void black, her eyes carrying depths that hadn't been there before. And beside her, connected by a bond visible as a rope of shadow and starlight, stood a young man who looked barely 20, confused and frightened, but undeniably human. I remember, Astraeus whispered. I remember being more than the void. The judgment is rendered, Lyrali announced formally. Astraeus, formerly the Void King, is granted redemption through guardian bond. His power is bound to Zephra's wisdom, his chaos to her order. Together, they will maintain the balance their separate natures could not. You can't be serious, Mordecai groaned from the floor. You're freeing him? We're transforming him, Calyx corrected, as we were transformed. As you could be, if you chose it. Never, Mordecai spat. Then you'll face regular justice for your crimes, Calyx said. Kidnapping, attempted regicide, conspiracy. The kingdom's laws will determine your fate. Lyrali looked around the chamber, at Zephra helping a confused Astraeus understand his new reality, at Calyx glowing with Genesis power he was still learning to control, at Nyx frantically taking notes about everything he'd witnessed, at Thessarian standing guard despite his obvious desire to flee. It's not over, she said quietly. The barriers between worlds are still weakened. There will be consequences to what we've done today. Then we face them, Calyx said, taking her hand. Where their skin touched, light bloomed. Together? Together, she agreed. As they made their way back to the surface, Lyrali marveled at the gift of sight, at seeing the man she loved, the friend who'd protected her, the world in all its dangerous beauty. But more than that, she marveled at what they'd become. Not just Genesis and Wolf, but something new, something balanced, something that could bridge worlds without destroying them. Your Majesty, Thessarian said as they emerged into daylight, what do we tell the kingdom? About all of this? Calyx looked at Lyrali, who smiled. The truth, she said. That the old world is ending, and a new one is beginning. One where blindness can become sight, where curses can become gifts, where even the void can find redemption. They won't believe it, Thessarian warned. They will when they see us, Calyx said. He pulled Lyrali close, and their combined power lit up the sky with gold and silver fire. They'll believe because we'll show them. The Genesis paired, the Guardian bonded to Void, the world transforming into something better. And if they reject it? Nyx asked. Then we keep trying, Lyrali said. Redemption is a choice that must be offered again and again until it's accepted. We learned that today. As they began the journey home, Lyrali felt the weight of their new responsibilities. They were judges now, bridges between worlds, protectors of balance. It would not be easy. But with Calyx's hand in hers, their bond humming with shared power and unshakable love, she knew they were ready. The blind Omega who had stumbled into an untouchable Alpha's arms had become something neither of them expected. Not just his mate, not just a queen, but a force of transformation that would reshape their world. And it had all started with a moment of unexpected touch in a market square, two broken people finding wholeness in each other. Sometimes the greatest transformations began with the smallest moments. Sometimes love really could change everything. The journey back to the capital should have taken 3 days. It took 7. Not because of distance or danger, but because word of their transformation had spread like wildfire. Every village, every outpost, every lone cottage along the route had people waiting. Wolves who wanted to see the Genesis pair with their own eyes. Humans who couldn't believe the stories. Sick and injured, hoping for healing that Liralai found herself unable to refuse. "You can't heal everyone," Kalix said gently as she collapsed beside their camp's fire on the 6th night, exhausted from restoring sight to a child born blind like she had been. "I have to try," she replied, though her new eyes that could see in spectrums no human or wolf should perceive, were dim with fatigue. "This power isn't mine to hoard." "The power will kill you if you're not careful with it." Zephra approached, Astraeus walking beside her like a lost puppy. In the week since his redemption, he'd spoken perhaps 10 words, spending most of his time staring at the world as if seeing it for the first time. Which, Liralai supposed, he was. Seeing it through eyes unclouded by centuries of madness and isolation. "She's right," Astraeus said suddenly, making everyone turn. His voice was soft, uncertain, nothing like the world-ending thunder it had been as the Void King. "The Genesis power. It's not meant to be spent so freely. It needs to be channeled, directed. Otherwise, it consumes the wielder." "Speaking from experience?" Thessarian asked coldly. He still didn't trust the former Void King, kept his hand on his sword whenever Astraeus was near. "Yes," Astraeus replied simply. "I tried to fix everything, heal everyone, transform the whole world at once. It drove me mad. The weight of that much suffering, that much need. It breaks you." Liralai studied him, her enhanced sight showing her the truth of his words in the fracture lines still visible in his essence. "Then how do I help without losing myself?" "You teach others," he said. "Genesis wolves weren't meant to be solitary healers. We were meant to be teachers, showing others how to bridge the gap between worlds themselves." "We?" Kalix's voice held an edge. "You still consider yourself Genesis?" Astraeus flinched. I don't know what I am anymore. Zephra's bond keeps me stable, but I'm neither Genesis nor Void now. Something between." "Like us all," Liralai said thoughtfully. "None of us are what we were. We're all something between now." A howl echoed in the distance, a scout's warning. Riders approaching. Thessarian was on his feet instantly. "How many?" Another howl, this one more complex. Kalix translated. 20 riders, Royal Guard colors. They're from the capital." The riders arrived within minutes, their leader dismounting and bowing low. "Your Majesties," he said, and Liralai still wasn't used to the plural. "The Council requests your immediate return. There have been developments?" "What kind of developments?" Kalix demanded. "Other kingdoms have heard of the Genesis pair's emergence. 3 have already sent delegations demanding audience. And..." The guard hesitated. "Speak," Kalix commanded. "The Oracle has locked herself in the highest tower and refuses to come out. She says the future has become unclear, that your transformations have changed every prophecy she's ever made. She claims she can no longer see a single path, but thousands branching in all directions." Liralai and Kalix exchanged glances through their bond. They'd broken prophecy itself? "We leave at dawn," Kalix decided. The capital was in chaos when they arrived. Not violent chaos, curious chaos. The streets were packed with wolves and humans alike, all straining to catch a glimpse of their transformed king and queen. When Lyrelai stepped from the carriage, able to see the crowd for the first time, the sheer weight of their expectations nearly drove her to her knees. "Steady," Calyx murmured, his hand finding hers. The moment they touched, their combined power flared, visible as an aurora of gold and silver light. The crowd gasped, some falling to their knees, others reaching out as if to touch the light itself. "The Genesis pair!" someone shouted. "They're real!" "Your Majesties," Nyx appeared, looking haggard. "Thank the ancestors you've returned. The delegations are growing impatient, and there's something else. Wolves have been transforming spontaneously across the kingdom." "Transforming?" Lyrelai asked, alarmed. "Not into their wolf forms. Into something else. Something between. Like an echo of your transformation, spreading through the pack bonds." Calyx's expression darkened. "Show me." They were led to the palace's medical wing, where a dozen wolves lay in various states of transformation. Some had partially shifted features, human bodies with wolf eyes, or wolf bodies with human hands. Others seemed caught between forms, flickering like Astraeus had in his cage. "It started 3 days ago," Nyx explained, "right after you completed the judgment. It's as if your transformation created a ripple effect, showing others that the boundary between human and wolf isn't as solid as we thought." Lyrelai approached the nearest patient, a young woman whose body kept shifting between forms. With her new sight, she could see the problem immediately. The woman's wolf and human natures were fighting for dominance instead of merging. "They're trying to transform alone," she realized. "But the transformation needs balance. It needs—" "A pair," Astraeus finished. He'd been so quiet they'd forgotten he was there. "Genesis transformations were never meant to be solitary. That was my mistake. Trying to change alone, without an anchor." "Then how do we help them?" Zephra asked. "We teach them what we learned," Lyrelai said. "That transformation isn't about becoming one thing or another, but about choosing to become something new together." "Your Majesties," a new guard appeared, breathing hard. "The foreign delegations demand immediate audience. They're threatening to leave if—" "Let them threaten," Calyx said dismissively. "Actually," Lyrelai said thoughtfully, "bring them here." "To the medical wing." "Here?" the Sarian questioned. "They came to see the Genesis pair's power. Let them see what that power really means, not conquest or strength, but transformation and choice." The delegations were not pleased to be brought to a medical wing instead of a throne room. 3 separate kingdoms had sent their finest diplomats, dressed in rich silks and dripping with jewels. They stood uncomfortably among the transforming wolves, trying to hide their disgust and fear. "This is highly irregular," the Southland ambassador said stiffly. "These are irregular times," Lyrelai replied. She moved to the center of the room, Calyx beside her. "You came to see the Genesis pair. To assess if we're threat or opportunity. Let me show you what we truly are." She knelt beside the shifting woman, placing one hand on her head. With the other, she reached for the woman's mate, a man who'd been hovering anxiously nearby. "Transform together," she said simply. "Stop fighting the change and embrace it. Together." The mate knelt, taking his partner's hand. The moment they touched, the chaotic shifting stabilized. Their forms settled into something new. Not fully human, not fully wolf, but a graceful blend of both. "Impossible," one of the ambassadors breathed. "Not impossible," Calyx said. "Evolution. The barriers between forms are breaking down. Not through force, as the Void King tried, but through choice." "You're saying this will spread?" the northern diplomat asked, alarm clear in his voice. It's already spreading, Lyrali confirmed. Every wolf, every human with dormant wolf blood, every being caught between worlds, they're all feeling the call to transform. Fighting it will only cause chaos. Accepting it, learning to guide it, that's the only path forward. This is madness. The Eastern representative stepped back. You're talking about changing the fundamental nature of our world. The world is already changing, Estrella said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Most hadn't realized the legendary Void King was among them. The barriers I tried to break by force are dissolving naturally. The Genesis pair's transformation was a catalyst, but this was always going to happen eventually. And who are you to make such claims? The Southland ambassador demanded. I am Astraeus, he said simply, formerly the Void King, currently learning to be human again. The ambassadors recoiled in horror. You brought the Void King here? The northern diplomat shrieked. He's supposed to be imprisoned for eternity. He was judged and redeemed, Lyra Lee said firmly. Bound to a guardian, transformed from destroyer to protector. He's living proof that even the worst of us can change, given the chance and the right anchor. You're all insane, the Eastern representative said. Our kingdoms will never accept this. We'll unite against you if necessary. Then you'll be fighting the future itself, Calix said, and his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Look around you. Wolves choosing to transform. Humans discovering dormant abilities, the boundaries between worlds thinning. You can either help guide this transformation or be swept away by it. There is another option, a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see the oracle standing there, but she was changed. Where before she'd seemed ancient and mysterious, now she looked young, almost fragile. The transformation in the world had affected her too. Oracle, Lyrelai said respectfully. Not anymore, she replied. The future I once saw clearly is now 1,000 branching paths. Your transformation shattered the fixed destiny of our world. But in doing so, you've given us something precious, choice. She moved into the room, and Lyralee could see with her enhanced sight that the oracle was partially transformed too, caught between human and something else entirely. The kingdoms can choose to resist, to fight, to maintain the old barriers. That path leads to war, suffering, eventual collapse. Or they can choose to embrace the transformation, to help guide it, to become part of something greater. And if we choose to resist? The Southern ambassador asked. Then you'll face not just the Genesis pair, but every being who's felt the call to transform. Every wolf who wants to be more than beast, every human who carries the dormant gene, every creature caught between worlds. You'll be fighting evolution itself. The ambassadors exchanged uncertain glances. We need time, the northern diplomat said finally, to consult with our rulers, to consider. Take all the time you need, Lyrelai said, but know that while you deliberate, the world changes, with or without your permission. After the ambassadors left, Lyrelai stood on the palace's highest balcony, looking out over the city with her new sight. She could see the threads of transformation spreading through the population like veins of light, some bright and willing, others dim with resistance. It's happening faster than I expected, Calix said, joining her. Are we doing the right thing? She asked. Changing the world like this? We're not changing it, he replied, pulling her close. We're just showing it what it could become. The choice is still theirs. The blind Omega and the untouchable King, she mused. Look what we've become. Genesis paired, he corrected. Bridge between worlds. Teachers of transformation. In the distance, a howl rose, not of warning or fear, but of celebration. Another successful transformation, another being choosing to become something more. Whatever comes next, Lyrelai said, we face it together. Together, Calyx agreed, and their combined light painted the approaching night in shades of hope. The world would never be the same. And perhaps, Lyrelai thought as she watched the city transform beneath them, that was exactly as it should be.